It is another edition of Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and a question that I don't know if Broncos fans really want to think about, Mase, but should the Broncos just keep Russell Wilson?
Well, there's arguments for that. Obviously, you don't incur $85 million of dead money over the next 2 years, although you do add $37 million to what you owe him because then his 25 base salary becomes guaranteed. Personally, I think this is a situation where the damage is done and you have to move on, and we see that Russell Wilson really can't execute the rhythm and timing things for Sean Payton's offense. But there is an argument to keep him. The cap is involved with it. And also, by plenty of numbers, Russell Wilson did have a decent 2023.
Right, and why can't it work? And what's interesting to note, Mase, is the people that you're talking to at the Super Bowl and the opinions that they have. We're kind of in the trenches, right? And we're like, of course they're going to get rid of Russell Wilson. But there are, luminaries in our business that you talk to that maybe see things differently.
Yeah, that see that there's a possibility that he could stick around. Now, I think, again, where we sit, it seems pretty unlikely. But what if there's a scenario where Russell Wilson puts out feelers through his agent, Mark Rogers, finds that there's nothing in the offing, no guaranteed starting role? Can they put the pieces back together? Now, again, that's a question where if you ask, most people will tell you, no, they don't think the pieces can be put back together between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And so that weighs into it as well. But I think it's still likely Russell Wilson moves on, but I think it's also fascinating that there's plenty of chatter that maybe things can be worked out.
You talked to Aaron Schatz, formerly a Football Outsider, so one of our dear friends, and a guy that knows the numbers. And it's interesting. I'll have you set up the first clip here with Aaron, but it's like he's a numbers guy. He understands what this team is facing numbers-wise and how maybe the best decision isn't one that fans maybe really want right now.
Exactly. I think it's one of those things, eyes versus data, right? The data on Russell Wilson, it doesn't point to him being bad. It points to him being mid, right? You look at ESPN QBR, mid. You look at EPA per play. It's not great. It's mid, right? Now, you can go through EPA per play and see there's a decline in fortune over the course of the year. But we're not, this is the thing. You're not talking about a bottom five quarterback. Last year, you were talking about a bottom five quarterback with Nathaniel Hackett. Sean Payton and Russell Wilson together, Russell Wilson had a very mid-tier type of season. And somehow that's reflecting negatively on Sean Payton, which I don't quite understand because clearly he did far better with Russell Wilson than Nathaniel Hackett did.
Yeah, 1,000 times better. So first clip from Aaron Schatz. He pretty much just sums it up, Mase. You want me to go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage?
Go ahead.
Let's do it.
If you were the Broncos, what would you do?
Keep Russell Wilson and not swallow all that money on my cap. The alternatives are draft a quarterback, which I think that they won't get a shot at the top three guys, and then where they are is
12.
Yeah, that's probably too high for the next level of guys. So I suppose you could try to use a second round picks if a Michael Penix falls to 44
But they don't have that because of the Sean Payton trade.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And
okay.
They don't have the second round pick. And the way they executed that deal, it was basically they trade their second and they got a third rounder back. So they would have had 2 third rounders, except they sacrificed the extra third rounder to move up and pick the aforementioned Riley Moss in round 3 last year.
Or you get a caretaker like a Ryan Tannehill or something. Is that really better than Russell Wilson? The highs are not as high and the lows are not as low. So, yay, the lows are not as low, but the highs are not as high. And the overall performance, I think Russell Wilson even though he does dumb stuff sometimes, is better than Ryan Tannehill. So the weird thing is, I think what I would do is just keep Wilson for one more year.
I love that. I love the way Schatz just puts it to you straight. Like, he does dumb stuff sometimes, but it's better than Ryan Tannehill.
Well, and that's the thing. And in terms of roster building, you are not only paying Russ, but you're paying the quarterback you're bringing in as well, right? So your cap figure for Russell Wilson is going to be $35.4 million. And then, of course, you've got the cap figure for Jarrett Stidham coming back, which is larger than the cap figure that you had on Stidham last year. Of course, he signed that 2-year contract with the Broncos in free agency last year. But I believe I'm looking at it right now. Jarrett Stidham's cap number is $7 million for 2024. It was $3 million last year. So you're at $42.4 million of cap to your quarterback before you bring in a veteran and before you have a guy that you draft. It's funny. Aaron mentions Ryan Tannehill, okay? Let's take a look at Ryan Tannehill's contract, shall we?
Yes. And I don't believe that Tannehill's going to take a Baker Mayfield type of deal like Mayfield got last year, where it was a bargain for Tampa Bay. I don't see Tannehill doing that. Could be wrong.
Okay, well, Tannehill's in a avoidable year, so basically, it's if you traded for him and advanced that voidable year, you'd be looking at that wouldn't be 9.2. So basically, Ryan Tannehill, you might be able to get on a fairly minimal deal. Does that excite anybody? No. Mac Jones, you'd be getting on a rookie contract, year 4 of a rookie contract with the Patriots, assuming what's left of the signing bonus, right?
Right.
But you're still going to add that to the $42.4 million for Jarrett Stidham and Russell Wilson. How does a QB room that's $50 million of cap space, even without Russell Wilson, strike you? And obviously, most of that $50 million is going to be paying Russell Wilson to not play for you next year.
Right.
Right. Man alive.
James Marilat wrote about it today at denversports.com. Do the math before considering QB options. That includes cash and salary cap, because we have to consider, okay, it's a rookie, it's a first rounder. Well, there's going to be a cash bonus in that too, in addition to a lower rookie salary. But we're, let's just say, 45, 50 million just to get a guy.
But relatively speaking, cash is immaterial because we're not talking about a cash poor ownership, right? That would have been something that probably did come up under the previous stewardship. It's not something that comes up anymore. It's all about the cap. It's all about the cap. And oh, by the way, let's say you have a bridge quarterback and you sign him to a 2-year deal, but if you do the Jarrett Stidham type of contract again where you backload it, then you can't do that because, oh, by the way, if you cut Russell Wilson and you're doing it with a post-June 1 designation, so you're getting some relief this year, that's a $49.6 million hit next year, okay? Now, I always say don't fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. If you don't believe Russell Wilson can be that guy, you have to go ahead and move on and accept what you're going to lose. But this is also why when Boomer Esiason suggests Baker Mayfield, hey, it's fun to talk about Baker. Baker's going to command $35 or $40 million in all likelihood on the market if he hits the market. Baker clearly wants to stay with the Buccaneers, and I'd like to think Tampa Bay is smart enough to keep him around. So that's probably irrelevant, but if Mayfield were on the market, you would be able to give him the contract that he's probably going to warrant from somebody else. So,
well, and I don't see
the Broncos don't have great options.
No, and I don't see the bounce back coming. Like you could see it with Baker. Baker's been successful. Carolina's a disaster, but we've seen flashes with Baker. I think Ryan's days, if we're talking about Tannehill specifically, those days are done. There's no bounce back. There's no wow, what a reclamation. And Mac Jones sucks. I'll just be honest. Like, he is not a good player, and he's a dirty player. So do I want Mac Jones in Denver? That's not a no. Brother, that's a hell no.
The thing with Tannehill, also a dual threat quarterback, right? Someone whose success equation relies upon scrambling. And we just had this discussion with Russell Wilson over the last few months, right? That skill set, that tool on the belt, that's not going to age very well, right? Which is another reason why a guy like Tannehill would give you pause, in my opinion. I'll actually say this, and I may actually turn this into a separate story, although I touched on it in my piece at denversports.com. When Boomer Esiason says Jake Browning, okay, I know that's a name that may make people go, meh. That's honestly as good an option as I've heard for a couple of reasons. Number one, young, upside. Number two, I think by any reasonable definition, played very well coming in for Joe Burrow. Like I was telling Troy Rank of Channel 7 earlier today, the Bengals were left for dead. They weren't doing very well with Joe Burrow anyway. Jake Browning brought them back to life, resuscitated them down the stretch, gave them a chance to make the playoffs before they finally hit the wall. So I could be intrigued. Again, Bridge, not long-term option, Bridge. I could be intrigued by Jake Browning. Certainly, I like a Jake Browning more than a Ryan Tannehill, more than a Mac Jones, perhaps. And then you have the other category, if say, who's the next Baker Mayfield? Well, even though he doesn't have the playoff pedigree that Baker Mayfield had when he came into Tampa Bay, because, of course, Baker Mayfield had guided the Browns to the postseason in 2020, that's where someone like Jameis Winston comes in, who's been a starter and has been productive, right?
Yeah.
That maybe, and also, oh, by the way, can run this scheme. We saw it, of course, when he played for the New Orleans Saints under Sean Payton in 2021.
Yeah, he can be very sharp. Jameis is probably the best answer. Jake Browning's not a bad answer, and I'll bring this up because we're a week away from the Senior Bowl, but Spencer Rattler was the talk of the Senior Bowl. Guess who was Spencer Rattler before Spencer Rattler? His name is Jake Browning. Jake Browning was a stud high school quarterback that had a couple of great seasons, then kind of fell off. Maybe Rattler did a little differently, where he was a stud high school quarterback, didn't do much, and then kind of got a little better as it went on. But I would rather take a chance on Browning, who's had pro coaching, pro starting experience, and is a timing and rhythm quarterback, which sounds pretty good for Sean Payton.
Yeah, exactly. The timing and rhythm, I think, is the key thing when you're looking at Jake Browning, and why you say, okay, I can project that. And what Sean Payton is doing, it's not Shanahan-McVay, but there's a lot of crossover on the Venn diagram. And the types of quarterbacks who generally can succeed in the Shanahan-McVay scheme are also going to be able to have some success with Sean Payton as well. It's just a matter of dealing with Sean Payton, who we know is a very demanding coach from his quarterbacks, right? You've got to have if you are the type of quarterback who kind of takes everything to heart and you're a sponge, emotionally speaking, Sean Payton's not going to be for you. You've got to be able to handle the bullets coming in, and go from there. I almost made a Taylor Swift lyric reference that my daughter would appreciate, but I'm not going to.
Well, I'll say this: growing up in a Latin family, you got to learn how to take a chewing. I'm going to yell at you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means you got to learn how to take a chewing. And if you're working for Sean Payton, you better know that. Now, Aaron Schatz also said something very interesting, Mase. And if you want me to go ahead and roll the footage, I will. But he was saying about how, and again, remember, he's the numbers guy. He's Football Outsiders, founder of Football Outsiders. He didn't think Russell was that bad last year.
Let's roll it.
I mean, I thought he was better than people thought he was. The numbers are not as sad as the way people watched. It seems like his bad games were timed to national television. And so overall, I believe Denver was a top 10 offense. I think they were like 9th. But it's funny. It really doesn't matter what I think about, because it's pretty clear they're moving on.
Yeah.
Right? So, we can talk about, was Russell Wilson better than, people said he was? It doesn't matter. They're not keeping him. They're moving on to the next thing. I just don't know what the next thing is going to be.
Okay, first of all, I want to mention, and Aaron caught up with me a little while ago, clarified, 19th in offensive DOA, not 9th.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but he said Russell timed it up where his bad games were on national TV. So it's always fun to get the national perspective, because we see everything and they see, Monday Night Football.
Okay. And here is something I'll throw at you. Of course, Russell Wilson started 15 games last season for the Denver Broncos. 3 of his 4 worst games came either in prime time or when the Broncos were the primary national game, right? So his 4 lowest passer ratings were against Kansas City on the road, Thursday Night Football, Houston in Houston. That game went to most of the country there in the early window, actually got moved from a late window where it wasn't going to be seen by many people to the early window where many people could see it. Then the Miami game, 1 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday, regional game. And then the 4th worst game was Detroit on Saturday night there in December, right? So there you go. That's sort of the evidence there, that some of his worst games were games seen by the most people. On the flip side of that, his 3rd best game in passer rating, Monday Night Football in Buffalo. So people did see something, but yeah, I think there's a point to what Aaron is saying when you take a look at the fact that some of his worst games were in front of big audiences.
Well,
and how perception.
Right. Perception is the reality that people deal with, Mase. What do teammates think of the quarterback situation? You got a chance to sit down with Alex Singleton, who's there as a spokesperson with the Special Olympics.
Right.
So let's set up this conversation. We got a clip for you. Also, there's an OBT2 tonight. Programming note for everybody, coming out at 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Mase and Alex Singleton, full interview. That's right here on YouTube. So it's OBT2, a special edition tonight, only on YouTube. So make sure to check that out. But let's set up this Singleton conversation you had on quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about some other things. We talked about the defense and all that. Again, you'll be able to catch that tonight. But I just had to ask Alex, hey, what are you and your teammates on the defensive side saying? Is there a text chain? Are you guys talking about the quarterback position? And I'll also set this up. We even hear from a Special Olympics athlete, Vince Egan, who's from the Denver area, and even he has his opinion on the whole Russell Wilson thing. But let's start. We'll start with Alex Singleton, and then you'll hear from Vince. Check it out. Obviously, you're on the defensive side, but the chatter is quarterback. When you guys are on text chains or whatever, are you all speculating okay, what might happen here? What are we going to do?
No, I think we're all so over all of that. We haven't talked about it in a long time. It's kind of played out. Yeah. So we're whatever happens.
Russell will be fine. He'll be helping out with that anything with the team. He can do whatever. He's a smart guy, so.
Speaking like a true teammate almost there.
You see that? I got Ben, he might be an Eagles fan, but he's a Bronco at heart. You see that?
No. I just know that I think the locker room will have confidence in their QB. They just got to stay positive through the hard times. Every team goes through those hard times, especially when you're the face of the organization. Media usually take it out on the QB because he's the one that's taking the reins in most of the time. But you got to remember that it's not just one person, it's all 53 people.
I couldn't have put it better than that.
Yeah, there we go. New
Really
teammate for the Broncos there. Nice.
Yeah, and especially the Special Olympics, that's something that's really near and dear to Alex Singleton's heart as well, because his sister is a longtime Special Olympics athlete. So he was here on behalf of them. Really cool. Really cool conversation. You'll be able to hear to watch all of that on OBT2 tonight. But I also can say, like what Alex said right there, that players are over it. They're just,
right.
I can't. I mean, and can you blame them for being just over this
Not at
whole
all.
thing? I mean, mercy sakes alive.
Yeah. Find a guy, get a guy, and let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, okay, who is it going to be? And I think, look, I think Broncos fans, I don't want to put thoughts in everyone's minds watching this show. But everyone wants a direction, right? I mean, Russell Wilson didn't work out, but that was a direction, okay? I think one of the things that gives people the shakes is the notion that you take this year and, we're just going to try to string it together with duct tape and baling wire. Let's figure it out. No, I mean, even Boomer Esiason a couple of days ago referred to, maybe you're looking for a 2-year stopgap. But the reality is there is a crying need to get this thing solved for the long term and have a direction. And I think when you hear Alex talk about it, I mean, maybe players aren't thinking as long term as fans are, but the players want a direction as well. I mean, they're sick of thinking about it, right?
Right.
It's not something you want to worry about.
They want to play ball. They want to win.
Yeah.
And that's what Broncos fans want as well. Mase, you're at the Super Bowl tonight on the agenda. What do you got?
It's a big night because barring something unforeseen, this is the night that Randy Gradishar is going to get his call for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Of course, Seniors Committee finalist almost all the time. That is considered a fait accompli that you get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't even want to think about what happens if he doesn't get in, if he does not pass through the vote of the wider committee. But I think the chances are excellent. This is going to be a very, very good night for Randy and the Broncos. I mean, this has been a cause for a long time. He should have been in long ago. He was a finalist from the primary pool back in 2008 and then went in the seniors pool. I thought he was unfairly passed over for the centennial class of 2020, but I think the Pro Football Hall of Fame is going to right a wrong tonight, and that'll be another Bronco going into the Hall of Fame. It's been a good few years. I guess if Randy goes in tonight, I don't think Broncos country can complain here for a minute, right? I mean,
yeah,
it'd be nice to see like a Louis Wright, for example, get some due. It would be nice to see Carl Mecklenburg get some traction in the seniors room. And at some point, Mike Shanahan's going to go in as coach.
Yes.
But if Randy goes in tonight, you look at the last several years, Terrell Davis, Champ Bailey, Pat Bowlen, John Lynch, Steve Atwater, right? You know, even DeMarcus Ware, although he primarily played for other teams, for Dallas Cowboys, and Brian Dawkins primarily played for the Eagles. The Broncos have been doing really well with Pro Football Hall of Fame representation in the last few years. So
just glad Floyd Little got in.
Yes,
Franchise,
back in 2010.
Yeah,
that was another guy who had to wait way too long.
Way too long. Mase, I will quote Star Wars, but a rare Star Wars quote that we don't ever use.
Okay.
From The Force Awakens. At the very beginning, the very first line in Force Awakens. This will begin to make things right. Randy Gradishar going into the Hall of Fame. This will begin to make things right.
I like that. You're hoping you're saying that about the quarterback position here over the next couple of months. Whatever the plan is, that this will begin to make things right for your Denver Broncos.
That is correct. Mase, who's doing the YouTube thing today?
Let's do it together. How about that?
Okay.
Ready?
Sounds good.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. like,
Like,
comment, share,
share,
subscribe, hit that notification bell
bell.
so that you never miss a vid.
Never miss a vid. That's right. We get it. We get it down.
We'll figure it out.
We got it down. We got it good. Mase is at the Super Bowl. Everyone, thanks for watching. Do all those YouTube things. Help us out. Follow Mase on all the socials at Mase Denver. Remember, special OBT2 tonight. Full Alex Singleton interview tonight. Only on YouTube. OBT2 with Andrew Mason at the Super Bowl. I'm Cecil Lammey. Mase and Cecil, OBT, PFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.